Hello my dear friends, you're in the Military with Summary channel, and today we will discuss the situation in the world on the 27th of May of 2026. Today we have a lot of very interesting updates, so let's start. And first we're going to talk about the conflict on the territory of Ukraine, where during the previous 24 hours, President of Ukraine Zelensky sent a message to the President of the United States of America, Donald Trump. Zelensky sends Trump urgent letter warning of Ukraine's critical missile defense shortages. Zelensky has sent a letter to Trump regarding the critical shortage of air defense systems in Ukraine. He warns of a worsening shortage of air defense systems, particularly anti-missile defense systems. When it comes to protection from ballistic missiles, Ukraine relies almost exclusively on the United States. Current supply rates no longer match the real threat faced. Ukrainian officials fear the limited number of Patriot interceptors and other systems provided by the West may be unable to withstand bombardment. You know that I read this message that was sent by Zelensky, and when I was reading this message, I came to the conclusion that Zelensky was in real desperate when he was writing this message. And Zelensky sent this message because these days the Russians made lots of statements about the next massive attack, and according to different sources, this massive attack is going to take place between the 27th and the 28th of May, maybe between 28th and 29th of May, so most likely within the next 48 hours. For example, we received a report that Russia once again has informed the United States of the need to evacuate diplomats from Kiev. He noted that Lavrov explained to Rubio what exactly led Russia to the decision to launch strikes on Kiev. There are no agreements on the visit of US representatives to Russia yet. Russia is not refusing dialogue with the United States, but high-level contacts depend on American side. According to Russian officials, they have warned the United States of America to evacuate the city of Kiev as soon as possible, but you know that the embassy of the United States of America on the territory of Ukraine still hasn't issued any warning on this matter. So most likely, sooner or later, they will do this, and then we will understand when exactly the Russians are going to attack the city of Kiev. Another important message was sent by the Minister of Foreign Affairs. Deputy Foreign Minister of Russia Galuzin will hold a briefing for the diplomatic corps on May 27th on the retaliatory strikes against military targets in Kiev. That was stated by Maria Zakharova. Russia will provide additional explanations on the strikes against military targets in Kiev. So this is a very interesting situation, and it seems that during the previous night the Ukrainians were trying to prevent this missile attack and to force the Russians to postpone or at least to change their plans, and for these purposes the Ukrainians launched a massive attack in the direction of the territory of Russia. And the most important thing, that the Ukrainians were trying to attack the launching sites of the Russian Federation. So that was a very interesting attack, probably for the first time since this year or something like this. The Ukrainians have an attack deep inside of the territory of Russia. The Ukrainians were attacking launching sites that are located along the border. So as you may know, the Russians are not launching their drones from fields or from forests. The Russians have launching sites that the Russians created along the entire line of combat contact, basically from Crimea till the Bryansk region. For example, during the previous night, the Ukrainians attacked the city of Sevastopol, and the sources stated that lots of explosions, lots of missiles and drones of the armed forces of Ukraine were recorded in the area of the Sevastopol International Airport and many other places and sites that the Russians used to launch missiles and drones deep inside of Ukraine. So in these pictures and in these videos we can see explosions, we can see several videos that were published by different sources on the matter of results of Ukraine's attack. And according to information we have, the Ukrainians attacked some buildings, some bank, and probably the Ukrainians were targeting some headquarters that is responsible for launching drones in the direction of Ukraine. So when talking about Crimea, the Russians use this territory usually to launch drones, Geraint drones, in the direction of Odessa region, and Russians use these this territory to attack in the direction of the southwestern parts of Ukraine, through the Odessa region, down through the Vinnytsia region. And if Russians want to attack something in this area, usually they use Crimea as a launching site. Another important area that was attacked by the Ukrainians is the city of Taganrog. Here we have also the Taganrog airfield, military airfield, that the Russians also used to attack deep inside of the territory of Ukraine. And usually Russians using this airfield attack in the direction of the cities of Zaporizhzhia and Dnipro. And during the previous night, during the previous 24 hours, the Ukrainians attacked this territory, probably with the purpose to hit warehouses, ammo depots, or anything that is related to drones and to places where the Russians store their drones. And during the previous day, we received lots of videos on this matter. A small fire broke out after Ukraine attack. Some buildings were damaged, but as we can see, according to all these videos, it seems that Ukrainians haven't managed to deal any damage to this territory. Another important launching site is the city of Donetsk. The Russians use the Donetsk airfield for these purposes, and for example, when talking about even this picture, this satellite picture, we can see these launching places, launching sites, these constructions that the Russians used to store and to use drones. And during the previous night, the Ukrainians also attacked the city of Donetsk, and according to information we have, probably either the Ukrainians missed or they were tasked to destroy something else, but as a result of the Ukraine's attack that took place during the previous night, the Ukrainians destroyed a gas station. It seems that this is the first gas station that was destroyed by the Ukrainians since the beginning of the special military operation in the territory of Donetsk region. When Russians use these Donetsk launching site, usually the Russians from this area attack deep inside of the territory of Ukraine in the direction of Kremenchuk. Sometimes the Russians are moving further in the direction of the city of Kiev and further in the direction of the western parts of Ukraine. So this launching site was also attacked and damaged by the Ukrainians. And during the night, the Ukrainians also attacked the Voronezh region and the Oryol region. As for these territories, once again, the Ukrainians were targeting military airfields, and here we have videos from, for example, the city of Voronezh. And as a result of attack, as you can see, the Ukrainians managed to damage something, and the sources are saying that the Ukrainians were attacking an airfield in this area. When talking about the city of Voronezh, the Russians used this launching site to attack in the direction of the city of Kharkiv. So this is the things that Ukrainians did overnight, and most likely when the Ukrainians came to conclusion that they haven't managed to deal significant damage or to deal damage at all, Zelensky wrote this message to the President of the United States of America asking for more missiles. If you ask my opinion, I believe that the President of the United States of America will provide missiles to Ukraine, but the problem is when exactly the United States of America are going to do this. There are very high chances that the decision has been already made by the United States of America, but it was probably a position of the President President Trump first to receive this letter when Zelensky will ask the United States of America publicly and officially, so everybody in the world will see this message, and then he will provide these missiles to Ukraine, which means that the missiles are already on the territory of Ukraine or about to enter the territory of Ukraine. And so this is the first option. And the second thing, the President Trump will reject this proposal and will propose Ukrainian side to start the negotiation process. So everything is possible. And as for this situation, Zelensky also made several statements on this matter. Today, Zelensky stated that the Russians are planning for mobilization, for another wave of mobilization, that the Russians are planning to increase the number of troops on the territory of Ukraine, that the Belarusians are going to open the second front line from the north. So too many panic, too many statements, just with one purpose: to force the European countries, NATO countries, to give more weapons, to provide more missiles, and to provide more armed vehicles and so on. Now let's move further. As for the Russian side, during the previous 24 hours, also a lot of explosions were recorded. The Russians were attacking the city of Odessa and the Odessa region. And as a result of attack, according to information we have, the Russians destroyed something like a warehouse or something like a mall. In this video, we can see the consequences of attack. A big building was almost completely destroyed by Russians as a result of drone strikes. And probably the Russians also began bombing the territory of Ukraine during the daylight. So the Russians began preparing themselves before the beginning of the massive overnight attack, which most likely is going to happen either this upcoming night or between the 28th and the 29th of May of 2026. But certainly this massive attack is going to happen, or maybe Zelensky will start the negotiation process, the real negotiation process, but highly unlikely he's going to do this. Now let's move further and let's discuss the situation on the ground. During the previous 24 hours, lots of updates were received from the city of Energodar. According to reports from various sources, over the past few hours, the city of Energodar, located in Zaporizhzhia region, under control of Russians, home to a nuclear power plant, has come under unprecedented massive drone attack launched by the armed forces of Ukraine. More than 50 explosions were heard, according to the officials of the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power station. So either the Ukrainians are planning something, or with these attacks, the Ukrainians are trying to show the Russians if they carry out massive attack on the city of Kiev, then the Ukrainians will begin bombing and attacking significantly the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power station itself without any possibilities for Russians to repair this station or something like this. So obviously the stakes are very high, and obviously the next 48 hours might be decisive in the conflict on the territory of Ukraine. Now let's move further and let's discuss the situation. According to information we have, during the previous 24 hours, the Russians destroyed 285 drones. The Russians destroyed at least 3 Storm Shadow missiles and 5 guided aerial bombs. So the Ukrainians from their side also intensify their aviation strike, long-range strike activities. Now let's discuss the situation on the ground, and first let's talk about the Zaporizhzhia direction. During the previous 24 hours, the most important updates we received exactly from this area. The Russians intensified their Zaporizhzhia offensive operation, despite the fact that Zelensky during the previous days made lots of statements that the Russians were stopped on the Zaporizhzhia direction, but it seems that maybe he was talking about some other Zaporizhzhia direction, but not about this one. According to information we have, during the previous 24 hours, the Russians established complete control over the settlement by the name of Vozdvyzhevka. So basically, the Russians have finished the creation of the eastern Zaporizhzhia flank, and now using this ground, the Russians most likely will continue their offensive operation further in the western direction towards the city of Zaporizhzhia itself, and of course in the direction of the city of Orekhov. Now the most important thing is the settlement of Gulyai-Polskoye, which is located to the south, to the west of Gulyai-Pol and Zheleznychne. Most likely in coming days, the Ministry of Defense and the group of forces east will confirm control over these territories as well. And when these villages are under complete Russian control, we are talking about Gulyai-Polskoye, Verkhnya Tersk and Vozdvyzhevka, then from these positions the Russians will most likely begin their major offensive operation using all types of weapons and all means they have, with the purpose to cross this territory as fast as possible and to get the city of Zaporizhzhia from the east, with the purpose to have possibilities to begin artillery strikes, and the most important, with the purpose to cut the main logistic roads that goes through the city of Zaporizhzhia. And furthermore, when talking about the city of Zaporizhzhia, if Russians are able to get to the outskirts of the settlement, or at least this red line, then even from these positions the Russians will be able to establish a certain fire and FPV drone control, or even to establish much better Geraint drone control over the bridges through the river of Dnipro in the area of the city of Dnipro. So if and probably when the Russians establish complete control over the logistics through the city of Dnipro in this area, this can lead to unpredictable consequences for the armed forces of Ukraine in the area of the cities of Kharkiv and Sumy, because the Ukrainians don't have lots of places where they can use to support their contingent on the eastern bank of the river of Dnipro, and if they lose these two, the most important ones, this can lead to unpredictable consequences for the forces and for the front lines. Now let's move further and let's discuss the situation in the Dobropolye direction. The clashes in this area are intensifying, but as you can see, without significant changes on the ground. So these are the changes between the dates. This is the end of the 26th, this is the end of the 27th of May. The Russians, or from the group of forces center, established control over the settlement of Vasilievka according to different mappers, and the Russians continue advancing further. The Russians continue outflanking the settlement of Dobropolye, and as for the city of Dobropolye itself, these days we receive more and more updates of how the Russians using FPV drones attack positions of the armed forces of Ukraine through the settlement. So the Russians, which means, are getting closer and closer to the city. The Kostiantynivka direction, as we discussed during the previous video, up to 35% of the city have already collapsed, and the Russians continue advancing further. It seems that several cauldrons were created. Pro-Ukrainian sources these days publish lots of analytics about the situation in this area, and every single data, every single article published regarding the city of Kostiantynivka just describes how bad the situation there for the armed forces of Ukraine. The Russians continue advancing, continue attacking from the west and from the east, tightening the news around positions of the armed forces of Ukraine through the southern and the southeastern parts of the city. The Russians continue advancing. As of now, it's very difficult to say when the battle for the entire city of Kostiantynivka ends, but one thing is clear, that most likely during the June of 2026, the Russians will be able to establish complete control along this red line, which is going to be basically the beginning of the battle for the Alexeyevka-Drushkovka, because most likely the Ukrainians will not be able to hold their positions through the northern parts of the city for a very long period of time. As for the eastern Kostiantynivka direction, we haven't received anything from this area, as well as from the Liman direction. Just several videos were published by pro-Russian sources of how they were bombing and attacking different positions of the armed forces of Ukraine in this area. Now let's discuss the situation in the Kupiansk direction. We have changes. Today pro-Russian sources published this video, and in this video we can see how Russian soldiers were moving through the city of Kupiansk through its northwestern parts, and based according to the author of this video, the Russians were patrolling this part of the settlement, seeking for sabotage and reconnaissance groups of the armed forces of Ukraine, or some traps that were established by them. This episode took place right exactly in this area, which means that the Russians most likely have stronger control over the northwestern parts of the city of Kupiansk than it was expected. Based on this video, we have adjusted the map. We have removed completely the yellow color from this part of the city, and we have added additional color of the Russian control. The northern directions, the Russians continue or began bombing the city of Belye Kolodezh significantly. During the previous 24 hours, lots of videos were published on this matter. The Russians began using FABs, bombs, and so on, trying to deal significant damage to edge positions of the armed forces of Ukraine. And these videos are telling us just about one thing, that the Russians began the Belye Kolodezh offensive operation this day. Another important video published to the south, the settlement of Petropavlovka, several hangars were bombed by Russians with aviation bombs as well. The Russians, as you can see, are trying to destroy as many as possible possible positions of the armed forces of Ukraine before the beginning of the major battle for this area. The Kharkiv direction, during the previous night and during this morning, we received reports that the Russians improved their position significantly in this area. We've been talking a lot about the situation in this area since the beginning of this month, because the group of forces north published lots of updates on this matter, and today we received additional updates, and according to these reports, the Russians finished the battle for the settlement of Hraniv and managed to improve their positions even further. So according to these updates, we see that the Russians answered the settlement of Shevchenka, and now the Russians are about to begin the battle for the next city in this area, the settlement of Kozachye Lopань. And if Russians are able to take under complete control the settlement of Kozachye Lopань, then the Russians would be just basically 23 kilometers before entering the Kharkiv agglomeration from the northwest, from the city of Dergachi, which is a very important city and which was under complete Russian control during the 2022 at the beginning of the conflict on the territory of Ukraine. So the things are warming up, as we can see. Most likely in coming hours another massive attack will take place, and then we'll understand whether the President of the United States of America provided missiles for the Ukrainian side or not. And that's it for today. The Military Summary channel reminds we condemn any violence in the world. Thank you for your watching. Subscribe to my channel, put your likes, join my Patreon, and have a good day. Bye bye.